Today's lesson will provide you with an introduction to integers. Our objectives will be to graph integers on a number line, to identify integers that correspond to real-world situations, to examine integers and order using the less than and greater than symbols, and to find the absolute value of integers. So let's begin with graphing on a number line. First of all, I've given you a number line here, and you'll notice that on the right-hand end of it you have positive integers, and on the left-hand end you have negative integers. Please notice that right in the center you find a 0. That number is neither positive or negative. It simply is the placeholder between the two sets. The next thing I want to point out to you is that when we talk about integers, it's very easy to discuss opposites. For instance, if I have a -4 on this side, there's a number on the other end that is its opposite, a +4. And if we add those two together, we will always get 0. There are other pairs of opposites as well. For instance, -2 and 2, -1 and 1. So all of those are opposites, meaning that if we add them together, we would get 0. The next thing I'd like for us to look at would be some real-world examples of integers. In this section, we will be given a situation and we will describe the situation using an integer. For example, let's talk about temperature. If the temperature is described to be 53 degrees, we could write that as an integer as a +53. If we continued and we talked about the temperature is 4 degrees below 0, we could write that as a -4. Another situation would be stock prices, for example. If a stock price increased by $2 per share, we could write that as a +2. And if the stock price decreased by $4 a share, we would write that as a -4. Please notice that it is essential that you write the sign when you do negative numbers. On positive numbers, you could just as easily have written them as 53 and 2 without including the signs. Next, let's look at integers and order. Once again, you'll see we have our number line, and I want you to notice that negative numbers are to the left-hand end and positive numbers to the right. We'll use two symbols now. The first one you see on your screen looks like an arrow that's missing its tail and it points to the left. This symbol means is less than. The other symbol points to the right and means is greater than. What we want to do now is put the correct symbol into this statement. If I give you two numbers, -3 and 5, and I ask you to put in the correct symbol, what we need to do first is identify which of these numbers is the smaller number. Well, if we look on the number line, we see -3 is right here and 5 is right here. The number that is farther to the left would be the smaller of the two numbers. In this case, it would be -3. So the symbol that would go here is -3 is less than 5. Now let's look at our next set of numbers. I have 7 and -5. Once again, I can identify these on the number line, and the one that is farther to the left would be the smaller of the two numbers. So this time we would write 7 is greater than -5. And now for our last set of numbers, we have -3 and -8. If I identify those on the number line, I find -3 and -8. -8 is farther to the left on the number line, therefore it is the smaller of the two numbers. So we would write -3 is greater than -8. Sometimes students have trouble remembering which one of these symbols is which, but regardless of whether you could remember what to call it or not, you could remember how to put it into the sentence correctly. Notice that the little end of the symbol will always point to the smaller of the two numbers. This number is smaller, and here's the little end of the symbol. Notice that this is the smaller of the two numbers, and here is the little end of the symbol. Now the last thing I need to talk to you about today is absolute value. Once again, we're going to look at that number line because absolute value is a measure of distance. We'll be asking how far is the number from 0 on a number line. The first one we'll look at is the absolute value of 6. And I need to point out first of all that these bars right here are what indicate that we're taking the absolute value of a number. Those do not behave as parentheses or as brackets, but they really are an absolute value symbol. So this says we want the absolute value of 6. Well, 6 on our number line is way over here. And the question we ask when we ask for the absolute value of a number is this: how far is that from 0? So if I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the absolute value of 6 says that 6 is 6 positions from 0. Now that may seem quite simple, but we will be using that later on this semester. The next one would be the absolute value of a negative 4. Well, once again, if I started from 0 and counted 1, 2, 3, 4, I would find that I had moved 4 positions from 0. And notice that regardless of whether I'm counting to the right or to the left, I still have a positive number. Maybe it would help you if I ask, how far did you drive to work or to school or wherever you went today? And then how far did you drive home? If you drove 10 miles to go to school, you didn't tell me that you drove negative 10 miles to go back home. Both of those distances are 10 miles. Measures of distance are always positive. So regardless of whether we're counting toward a positive number or toward a negative number, our distance will be positive. Hence, the absolute value of a negative 4 is 4. And our last one is the absolute value of negative 7, which by now, even without counting, I'm hoping you realize is 7. That's all I have for you today. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.